How's your day going? Welcome to Why Is That So? The podcast series that delves into big questions using first principles thinking, offering you diverse perspectives on life's challenges and helping you cultivate a truly resilient spirit. Join us for this episode. In the 1970s, across America, whispers circulated about a man of unusual charm, intelligence, and captivating allure. His name was Ted Bundy. With his handsome looks, confident smile, and calm demeanor, Bundy garnered admiration from many fellow law students, colleagues, and even strangers he met on the street. Before the name Ted Bundy became infamous, he was a bright student with political ambitions, having worked on Republican campaigns and volunteered for an anti-crime organization. To society, Ted was the ideal image of a perfect man, intelligent, eloquent, and full of promise. But no one ever suspected that beneath that flawless facade lurked the most brutal serial killer in U.S. history. Throughout the 1970s, Ted Bundy murdered at least 30 young women by faking injuries to solicit help, then abducting and savagely killing them. It sends chills down your spine to know that during interrogations, he admitted to feeling no remorse. His very ability to charm and manipulate others' emotions allowed him to blend into everyday life for years without detection. No one truly knows the deep-seated reasons behind his actions. Why did a man with so much potential and so many hopes placed upon him descend into such moral depravity? To this day, to explain his horrific actions, his medical file now includes the label of a psychopath, or more specifically, an individual with antisocial personality disorder. So, what exactly is psychopathy? Psychopathy describes a severe personality disorder, often characterized by profound callousness, manipulation, and a deep lack of ethics. According to definitions from the Oxford Dictionary and various medical sources, individuals with psychopathy are those who disregard the feelings of others, feel no guilt when doing wrong, and may exhibit violent or cruel tendencies without an ounce of remorse. Clinically, psychopathy is rarely given a distinct diagnosis by mental health professionals. Instead, it's generally categorized under antisocial personality disorder, or ASPD. From a biological and psychological standpoint, research indicates that psychopathy has a strong genetic component, being less dependent on upbringing and more an inherent part of the individual from birth. The brain structure of people with this condition also differs, with the amygdala, the center for processing emotions like fear or guilt, typically functioning very poorly. Additionally, their brain's reward system responds powerfully to dopamine, giving them immense motivation to achieve personal goals, regardless of the means, even if dangerous. Individuals with high psychopathy scores often have very shallow emotions, no concept of right or wrong, a lack of empathy, and feel no regret after harmful actions. Socially, they are often master manipulators, capable of subtly mimicking social emotions, making others trust them without ever realizing their true nature. They feign concern, lie without batting an eye, and establish superficial relationships primarily for exploitation. They meticulously calculate, planning crimes, or achieving personal objectives with cold detachment. It's estimated that 3% of the population suffers from this condition, more commonly observed in men than women, particularly among those with alcohol or substance addiction, or inmates. Alongside psychopathy, there is also sociopathy, which is also not separately classified but grouped under antisocial personality disorder. While both exhibit extreme tendencies, they have distinct differences. So, what is the difference between psychopathy and sociopathy? Firstly, a notable distinction is in their prevalence. The number of people categorized as sociopaths is much higher, so researchers haven't yet compiled a definitive statistic. In contrast, psychopaths constitute only about 1% of the global population. The reason for this is that unlike psychopaths, where malice is an innate part of them from birth, sociopaths are individuals whose psychological state is distorted by environmental factors. These are people who grew up in unsupportive environments. They often struggle to maintain stable jobs or stay in one place for long. Researchers suggest that sociopathy is the result of a child growing up in morally bankrupt surroundings, experiencing physical or emotional abuse, beatings, or psychological trauma. This type of person is often easily agitated and constantly irritable. They are frequently overwhelmed by very strong emotions and lack the ability to control them, especially fits of anger. To those around them, sociopaths appear prone to explosive rage. They typically show no interest in others, making it difficult for them to form attachments and leading to extremely unstable relationships. Because they are always on the verge of erupting in rage, the crimes committed by sociopaths, including murder, often occur spontaneously. Due to these impulsive behaviors and lack of ability to integrate into society, sociopaths are generally easier to detect, and a higher number of them are apprehended. As for psychopaths, their malice is congenital, a primal evil, so individuals of this type are rarely impulsive and always have plans meticulously laid out in their minds. While lacking empathy and disregard for the feelings of others, psychopaths constantly analyze, understand, and mimic the emotions of their targets, then subtly exploit and manipulate them. A psychopath can maintain a superficial and false relationship to use those around them as stepping stones to achieve personal gain solely for themselves. The majority of people with this condition work in high-skill professions such as lawyers, doctors, or politicians. These jobs give them a sense of power and control over others' lives. Every plan they devise is aimed at minimizing risk to themselves. Each step, each move, is meticulously analyzed, and there's always a contingency plan for every scenario. This is why psychopaths often climb to the top 1% of the world without many realizing it. Unlike sociopaths, who simply let anger take over and lash out at others, psychopaths turn people into mere pawns for their own amusement in their game. A common trait in psychopaths is their perpetually calm and meticulous demeanor in any situation, even in emergencies that might threaten their lives. To researchers and law enforcement, psychopaths are like elusive ghosts because individuals with this condition are carefully concealed and very difficult to detect. In terms of danger, both psychopaths and sociopaths carry an equal level of inherent risk. However, psychopaths might be considered more dangerous because everything for them lacks emotional factors and is purely calculable. All that an individual with psychopathy does is to fulfill a single objective, their own self-interest. Another significant point is that sociopaths possess a positive characteristic compared to psychopaths: the capacity for empathy. Psychopaths are completely unable to empathize with anyone else's pain, whereas sociopaths, in certain situations, can still empathize with others because the nature of their condition originates from environmental influences rather than an inherent disposition. So, how can one recognize a person with psychopathy? The easiest way to identify this condition is by observing a child under the age of 15. Children with psychopathy often exhibit behaviors that infringe upon the rights of others, even breaking laws and violating social norms. Initially, these children are often diagnosed with conduct disorder, showing violent behavior towards people and objects around them. The clearest manifestation of this behavior is their ability to kill smaller animals with apparent delight. Additionally, these children frequently lie, engage in petty theft, and repeatedly break the law. If these behaviors persist in a child past the age of 15, doctors can then make a more accurate diagnosis as to whether the child is a psychopath. For adults, as mentioned, psychopaths are skilled at concealment, making them very difficult to identify. Even mental health experts are not always certain they can immediately recognize one. There is a famous and widely used test to determine if someone is a psychopath: the PCLR, Psychopathy Checklist Revised, also known as the Psychopath Test or Hare Checklist, named after Canadian psychiatrist Robert Hare. The PCLR consists of 20 items, each rated on a scale of 0, 1, or 2, indicating whether the characteristic is absent, 0 points, partially present, 1 point, or definitely present, 2 points. A person with a perfect score of 40 is considered a complete psychopath, while 30 is the threshold for making diagnostic observations. The testing process is scored by a professionally trained individual. We can try some typical examples. Try closing your eyes. Imagine yourself in an extremely dark forest. You're walking and you imagine something behind you. You immediately turn around and look back. What do you think you would see? Someone of the opposite sex, a ghost, a dog, a wild animal, or nothing at all? Take 5 seconds to think about your answer. If your answer is a dog, that could be one of the signs of a psychopath. A study at Johns Hopkins showed that normal people fear what they don't know or don't fully understand, such as someone of the opposite sex, supernatural entities, wild animals, or nothingness. Therefore, unconsciously, these are what we might imagine when walking alone in a dark area. For psychopaths, they lack empathy. They are unsure what others' fears are, so for them, it's a calculated choice. They can't choose someone of the opposite sex because they are always cautious of strangers. A supernatural entity isn't something tangible. Wild animals aren't familiar. And for nothingness, they believe they aren't crazy enough to imagine nothing when hearing footsteps. After eliminating all other options, the answer is only one: a dog. However, lacking empathy doesn't mean not needing love. James Fallon, a renowned American neuroscientist, once stunned the scientific community and the public by announcing that he was a psychopath. But the most surprising thing was how he overcame his callous nature through love and self-awareness. The story began when Fallon was conducting research on the brains of serial killers. While analyzing brain scans, he inadvertently noticed a scan with a near-perfect structure for a dangerous psychopath. Underactive prefrontal cortex, weakened amygdala, biological traits commonly seen in someone lacking empathy and behavioral control. Looking at the name of the participant, he was shocked to realize it was his own brain. After this discovery, he frantically searched for reasons, and upon reviewing his family history, he found that one of his ancestors was a murderer and a cold-blooded criminal. Reflecting on himself, he admitted, "I used to be selfish, manipulative, and insensitive to others' emotions, but I'm not a bad person." But why had he never realized he was a psychopath? Perhaps it was because he had received so much love from his family. His family and neighbors also confirmed that as a child, he exhibited unusual behaviors compared to other children. But that wasn't an excuse for his family to abandon him. The more different he was, the more they loved him and showered him with affection. Because of this, even though his emotional brain might be underdeveloped, his heart still knew what it meant to love. James Fallon now has a loving family, a successful career, and is always cherished. Overall, we can see that this condition can often only be treated at its root when children are not yet fully aware of the cruelty of the outside world, and we can embrace them wholly. When society listens to and supports individuals showing signs of psychopathy, we not only help them control negative behaviors, but also nurture positive aspects within them. Psychological therapies, emotional and communication skills education, along with the patience of family and community, all play a significant role in the recovery process. And most importantly, no one should be abandoned when they are still loved and have the opportunity to heal from within. That concludes this week's podcast episode. If you resonated with these insights, don't forget to follow our channel and look forward to the next episodes of Why Is That So? Bye.